Disclaimer: the content shared on Somewhere Between Chaos and Calm may contain discussions of mental health conditions, trauma, and other sensitive topics that could trigger for some listeners.
Please note that although I am a medical professional, any opinions, stories, or advice shared are based on personal experiences and should not be considered medical guidance. We strongly encourage our listeners to consult with a licensed physician or mental health professional for any medical, medication, or psychological concerns. Your mental well-being matters. Please take care while listening.
Hi, everybody. It's Sarah, your neurospicy friend.
And I'm Jen, the RN. Welcome back. We are so glad to have you, and we're excited to be doing another episode this week. We forgot a little bit last week that we are starting a series. So we want to talk a little bit more about dysregulation. And so dysregulation is something that happens often in borderline personality disorder, happens in a lot of our mental disorders, but really within borderline, there's kind of four main dysfunctions or dysregulations. And last week we talked about kind of our emotional dysregulations and how our emotions can kind of feel extra or too much sometimes. This week, we're going to be talking about our cognitive dysregulation. So that talks a lot more about our thoughts, our feelings, different things like that. And then our next 2 weeks, we're going to touch on behavioral dysregulation as well as interpersonal dysregulation. So we've touched on interpersonal dysregulation a little bit, about those relationships and, how we in borderline, we tend to like push people away or different things like that. So we'll get into some more of those dysregulations. But this week, we want to talk more about cognitive dysregulation. So, Sarah, tell me, have you been experiencing any cognitive dysregulation recently?
I have recently, I guess being a person who is diagnosed with borderline personality disorder, I have probably been experiencing cognitive dysregulation majority of my life, but being mindful of it now and really digging into my therapy and my coping skills and my mindfulness, I can more clearly see it and define it. So the scenario that I have that probably happens to me most often is I do have a part of my BPD where I experience some minor hallucinations, and it's not things like I'm seeing people or I'm talking to walls. It's not full-blown schizophrenia, but it is, yeah, it's definitely enough to where, and this is how my psychiatrist words it to me. She goes, if it's enough of a sound or a vision or a feeling that will get you up and doing action, that's what she classifies more as a hallucination. We all have different thoughts and our own internal voices all the time, kind of just directing us and helping us along with our thoughts. But when it's something that's big enough to get you up out of your seat and go take action about it, that's when it becomes something a little bit more. So I personally experience when I'm overly tired, usually overstimulated, overwhelmed, probably BPD is just like all in high gear.
You gave me all the food.
Yeah,
now I'm gonna go wild.
Yeah, give me all the things to feed Bruce, my BPD brain, right?
Yeah.
And one of the first things that I'll usually experience is auditory hallucinations. So I will start hearing noises. I have heard very loud crashes in my home that nothing has been there ever. Enough to make me get up and go check. I've a lot of times I'll get, when I'm really, really stressed and I'm like in panic attack mode, it will sound like a very busy grocery store in my head. So it's a lot of background noise. It's a lot of like rattling noises of like even like a cart shuffling. It sounds very much like an overly packed grocery store. So those are some of the dysregulations in my thoughts and in my brain patterns that I experience sometimes. Jen, for those listeners, though, who have maybe never been able to put words to what cognitive dysregulation is, can you give us a little bit of a meaning so that we have more of a definition around it?
Yeah, absolutely. So when we think about cognitive, we want to focus kind of thoughts, but also attention and memory, and kind of some of those decision making skills. So we think about executive functioning and kind of our prefrontal cortex, right? Those are all the things that kind of help us to make good decisions. And executive functioning is kind of those school tasks, right? Being able to sit down and read a book or answer some questions or play Jeopardy, like things that um, really require that school like brain is kind of that executive functioning tasks, and then making good decisions. So having that logical thought of here's right and here's wrong, or that I've learned that this is what the decision that I should be making. um I think also we talk a little bit about attention, and so the focus that you can have. And I think that's one where we see a lot in many different mental illnesses, where that's kind of the first thing to go is that attention. I
Mm-hmm.
think about depression and anxiety too, right? Like it just becomes so hard to focus on what is in front of you because your brain is spinning out of control and is doing so much extra work that it can't focus on kind of those executive functioning tasks in front of you.
Yeah. Yeah. I I do notice, and you know what, I bet everybody could relate to this, is anybody who's ever not gotten enough sleep
Mm,
the next day, right? One of the first things that I think everybody recognizes is, oh my gosh, my brain feels so sluggish. I feel so tired. Your brain's not moving at the normal pace that it usually is, so maybe you're
mhm.
slower to react to things around you, and we write it off as, oh, I'm just so tired. I didn't get enough sleep. I didn't get good sleep. Cognitive dysregulation. That
Mhm.
is a function in your brain that's not working at its probably, normal-ish capacity, or
Mhm.
maybe something that feels a little more awake and alert, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So everybody just know, like, this episode's for
We've been there.
everybody. We have all had those moments of, is my brain working today? Are
I
are we do we have
remember
it together?
I remember in college, they used to have these like little posters. So I lived in a sorority when I was in college, and they had these little posters on the lower parts of our mirrors in our like shared bathrooms. And it said that like going, I want to say it's like 48 hours without sleep is the same as having a certain number of drinks.
Yeah.
That your brain is functioning at the same level as if you were drunk, basically.
Yeah.
Um, and that just speaks, I think, just how important sleep is too. We could maybe we'll do a whole nother episode on sleep. But
Absolutely.
right, like that sleep helps your brain to shut down and grow and create new neurons and like neural pathways through your brain. And that's how we grow and we learn and we, continue to build on things. When we are lacking that, we're not making those new pathways, then it starts to feel that sluggishness and that slowness. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. So I did read this. So I am, for our listeners and people that are watching on YouTube, I am reading this book. It is Borderline Personality for Dummies. Thank
That's what I
you
thought it
for
was.
Yeah,
You're
it
reading your
is.
cliff notes over
I am. Thank you for Dummy series. Like, this is one of my favorite books, though, because it
there?
it breaks down all the different parts of BPD, and then it has really helpful things for, like, support people who love people with
Mm,
BPD. It actually has a part in here for therapists, about therapists who deal with patients with BPD. Like,
that's
there's
so cool.
all sorts of really good resources. But that one of the things in this book that I really liked is, so BPD specifically has like 9 core symptoms, and you have to meet a certain number of them for, like, a what clinically they like to call, like, being actually as diagnosed, right? There's 4, though, bigger ones that like when you look at the four, and if you can fall into a cluster of these four somewhere, it's very likely that you're either getting very close, or maybe you are, but it's not as intense sometimes. But one of the four, which is also one of the nine, so this is how important it is as a symptom of BPD, is cognitive impairment. So it says here that people with BPD often have distortions in perceptions and thoughts. Feelings of intense distrust, hallucinations, and delusions are part of the symptoms of borderline personality disorder. But Jen, I think as a nurse in the mental health space, this cognitive impairment with mental health disorders, it shows up in other places too, right? Um what other disorders do you often see cognitive impairments in?
Yeah, I mean, I think we touched on some of them, right? Like with the depression and anxiety, where you get that feeling of the brain fog, that I can't focus or I can't concentrate on what's in front of me, or even to the executive functioning of I can't get up and shower today. I can't do the activities of daily living, or some of those things, because I'm just so depressed or I'm so anxious. And so we do see a lot of that. Um, also within trauma and trauma responses, which we've talked a little bit about, how we'll do my flip the lid again, right? That lid is going to be your prefrontal cortex and your decision making. And so in a trauma response, you don't have those anymore. And so you're living in that hypervigilance state. You're, can't necessarily control the memories that you're making or having. And so it's hard to control some of that functioning.
Yeah, that
Um,
survival mode.
yeah, yep. Yeah, the guard dog barking, just like
Mhm.
keeps you in that fight or flight, as opposed to being able to focus and really execute. And then, of course, ADHD we talk about a lot with memories and focus. Um, some of those really strong cognitive tasks that um, just aren't up to par there,
That
and
one
that's
I
just the
find
way your brain works, right?
I do find that one really interesting because especially with ADD, ADHD, your brain is either like running on too many tracks at one time, or it can't stay steady on one track, right?
Hmm.
And so
Hmm.
the cognitive ability, your brain switching back and forth, or like not being able to focus in one place at a time, I find that to be so interesting, because that's one of those disorders that it really is. Now granted, there's with borderline personality, depression, trauma, things like that, there's some like other sometimes underlying factors, like maybe there was trauma as a child, maybe there was, some other dysfunctions that had happened that had kind of led you into those places. But with the attention deficit, sometimes it's really just like, nope, your brain, this is how your brain's
It's
wired.
just your brain.
It's just,
Yep.
that's just how it goes,
Nothing you
right?
could have done different. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. And
Yeah,
I
I
think
think
that
it's
one's cognitively very like wild cardish, it feels.
mhm. Yeah, absolutely. I do think it's interesting, like thinking about how women are often seen in these disorders as well, because women are very underdiagnosed in mental illness. Borderline and depression or anxiety are kind of two of the higher ones for women, but there's been a huge boom recently of ADHD, and there's kind of like a fad on TikTok of the ADHD, so like
Yeah.
autism,
Yeah.
ADHD kind of
Yes.
combination.
Yep.
Um, but really, you think about as younger girls and as we raise girls, girls are often raised with strong executive functioning, right? We're taught how to run a household, how
Mhm.
to be clean and tidy, um, things like that are often like much more taught to be in line and very structured, right?
Yeah.
Um, and so much of that is like we're able to mask a lot of these symptoms because of the learning that we've had growing up of like I'm able to follow the rules, but that doesn't mean that my brain is following the rules, or that If I wasn't taught in such a structured way, like a lot of boys are given a lot more leeway, right? Where it's like,
Yeah.
oh, they're boys, like we don't need to
Yeah.
teach them how to pick up their clothes or things like that, where people can kind of be a little bit more hands off with the boys. And so you're able to see something like an ADHD a lot more obviously than with
Mhm.
women, where we're taught to be a lot more structured.
Yeah, that's super interesting. So I recently had there was a conversation with I don't know, one of our kids and my husband in the kitchen, and they said something about, "Well, Dad, what does your calendar look like?" Blah blah blah. And he looks at me because I'm the keeper of the calendar, and he's like, "We'll talk to the person who handles the calendar, right?" And that's me. And so it's like, yeah, because I'm the planner,
Mm-hmm.
and as women, as moms, as just like even if you're just like a high performing, high functioning woman, like when you can't, yes, you've been taught all those skills, but then
Mm-hmm.
when something happens and you can't meet that standard anymore,
Mm-hmm.
you feel like such a failure.
Mm-hmm.
Like
Yeah.
it's like why, but it's really your cognitive functioning just being like maybe you need to take a nap.
Yeah, maybe it's time for a break, or even like some of these other things that we can do, right? We talked a little bit about mindfulness at the beginning, but being able to kind of recenter ourselves when we're noticing like, hey, I'm slipping over here, or like my calendar wasn't up to date and now my whole week's out of whack because I forgot to write down. This didn't happen in my life this week. Yes, it did. I forgot to write down that my husband was supposed to have lunch with someone. And so I messed up my work schedule and I totally forgot. And then, yes, it feels like it's my fault when, maybe if I didn't do so many things or try and cram so much in, it wouldn't have
Yeah.
felt that much, right? It wouldn't have felt as personal.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. So, um, okay, you talked a little bit about that prefrontal cortex and that being part it plays a big role in like just helping us function well every day. The prefrontal cortex, people, that's the part that is responsible for those executive functions. That's the part that really does help us respond appropriately and reason ourselves appropriately.
Let me
But
talk to
yeah,
those Gen Zers out there, though. Those of you under 25, it's okay. Your prefrontal cortex is not finished developing yet. You will
yes,
make dumb decisions, and that's okay.
yes,
We can
yes,
learn. And that's why
yeah,
you continue to learn as you get older.
yeah,
Your prefrontal cortex
absolutely.
does not stop uh, growing and learning until 25. So make your
Yes.
dumb decisions when you're young.
That is very true. And also there is a part, and I have recently started kind of getting into this and learning this because um Jen, you also had referenced the amygdala, the guard
Hmm.
dog, right? And the
Hmm.
guard dog is the one that keeps us safe. It is very important because if you are in a life or death situation, you want your amygdala to act appropriately because it could possibly get you out of that and actually keep you alive. Now, people with BPD, bipolar, PTSD, all sorts of mental health disorders, the amygdala doesn't always act right, or it doesn't always act in the manner where we would
In the
be like,
scenarios where
yes,
you need him, yeah.
yeah,
He
yeah.
goes off a little too often.
Like when your amygdala is like, oh my gosh, hide, Amazon's here, don't let him see you. Like that's the amygdala maybe not acting
Yeah.
appropriately. Um so the something that I have been researching though is because I have in my 40s, I'm trying really hard to get my brain back into because yes, when you're younger, it's not fully formed. When you're older, it is fully formed, but this great thing about trauma can make it actually almost kind of eat away at itself. So your prefrontal cortex is one of those things that if you're not using it, you are potentially losing it slightly.
And it
And
kind of
that
freezes, right? Like
mhm.
it depending on when your trauma occurred, they have, I think we've talked about these brain scans before. Go look them up. They're really interesting. But they have brain scans of people who have been through traumatic experiences, and you can see like how the different neural pathways have developed in those brains versus typical brains. But you can continue to rebuild your neural pathways, which is the beautiful thing about a brain.
Yes, yes. And that's the part, the neuroplasticity about our brains. So, yes, it's fully formed by 25, 26 ish. But when you get into, so I lived a lot of my life in the survival mode. There was a
Mhm.
big chunk of my life where my amygdala was the only parts of my brain that was really acting probably 75% of the time. That caused my prefrontal cortex to kind of go into that hibernation mode because it's like, well, you're not going to use us for actual reasoning. You're clearly in a situation where we just got to keep you alive. So it just kind of went in a little stagnant. So I am finding that I need to start actually doing learning activities. Like I am doing
Mm.
brain activities to start to practice reasoning skills again
Mm.
with my brain so that I can build that muscle some more. I know that like I do know like I'm never going to fully get it back to maybe a brand new 25-year-old, prefrontal cortex, but I can at least hopefully start, walking into rooms and remembering why I'm there more often. Like that'd be great. That's
Yeah. What
that's a
are some
bonus.
of what are some of your brain activities? I'm so curious.
So I started this app,
Okay.
and it you tell it it gives you like a test. It's called Impulse. So
Oh.
this app Impulse, it's made for brain activities. You take this test beforehand that kind of says where you're currently at and what some areas you should be working on. And then you can also pick out certain activities yourself to kind of be like, I really want to do better in that one.
Yeah.
So right now, a lot of the things that I'm working on are memory. I have
Okay.
I have a good chunk of memory loss
Mm.
that and it was recent. Like it was within the last like probably year where I just have huge chunks of time that I'm missing. And it's I know that this has happened in other parts of my life for other reasons, and I can name those and I can put them together. And it was usually trauma, my brain just trying to keep me safe, right? And it's like we're not gonna look at that. Um, but this recent one, I don't really understand because I don't know if it's a mixture of hormones and um the my BPD kind of kicking in
Mhm.
to a different gear. So I'm trying to focus on memory stuff. So it's very much like the game of memory. Like I'm
Yeah.
flipping cards over, I'm finding the matches. Like it's what did that sentence just say? Repeat it back type
Oh,
of a thing.
yeah.
Um and maybe it's a little attention deficit for myself
Mhm.
because I don't, screens and all that have made us just have goldfish attention spans. So I
Gosh,
just
one
know
of the
that,
most terrifying things about parenting right now is like how much screen is good screen, and like,
yeah,
do I want my like am I going to be the reason that my child is ADHD?
yeah,
It's like a
yeah,
yeah, haunting.
yeah, absolutely. I know. I have fully, I think I've come to terms with it with myself as a parent. Like, okay, if I
Mhm.
am the one that causes my kid to have ADD at some point in their life, at least I will have the tools to help them handle
I was just going to
it.
say, how can I prepare myself with the tools?
That's the
It's
best I can
like,
do.
there's at least a way out, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's all
For
you
all
can
of
do.
these. We can always
Um,
prepare.
but so yeah, so the prefrontal cortex definitely helping us with our reasoning, definitely help us with rationalizing real true events and not falling into that guard dog status. But the parts that I was talking about too, though, with the memory loss and
Mm.
trying to rebuild that plasticity in my brain, that's actually a different part of the brain. And that is, what is that, Jen?
Your hippocampus.
The hippocampus.
Hippocampus does a lot with that memory. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And I recently listened to a master class about brain health, and hippocampus is kind of delicate. Hippocampus is kind of for something that memories are so strong in our
Mhm.
systems, right? And memories are so important to us. Um, we give the hippocampus a lot to have to process and hold on to. And then also it it gets destroyed so easily. Like it look at dementia patients, Alzheimer's, and then people who like myself that have not always been great to my brain, whether that's not enough sleep, whether that's ignoring my medications,
Mm.
not treating my, mental health the way that I should, substances, drugs, alcohol. Your
Mm.
poor little hippocampus is just trying to hold on to your memories for you.
I was gonna say when I said that, I was like, shoot, there's a different location for short-term memories and long-term memories. But yes, yes, most of long-term is in hippocampus. Short-term can be split between prefrontal and hippocampus. So,
Oh,
because I
there
was
you
like, I know that
go.
there's different locations for it, but yes, same thing. I mean,
Yeah,
trying to
yeah,
figure out,
yeah.
yeah, between all the damage that we do in our brain, it's yes, we want
Yeah.
to be able to protect.
Yeah. Oh, that's good. That makes so much sense that it's the short term and the long term is kind of because yeah, I felt bad like after I listened to this masterclass, I felt bad for hippocampus because I was like, you have so much responsibility and we're so bad to you.
He's so
Like
strong.
I did. I felt so bad for this little thing in our brains. So, yeah,
I
I
love
mean,
that.
that's a bit of our cognitive dysregulation. So for anybody who's like, okay, great, now you guys have told me all the ways that my poor brain is just not functioning. Maybe you want to know, how do I know? What are some things? Like, what does it feel like? Myself personally, I can tell you that brain fog is a real thing. Brain fog is something that I okay, Jen, what tell me what is there a difference between brain fog and dissociation?
Yes. Yes.
What's the difference? I
I
I
was worried that was going to be the
I
follow-up
don't know.
question.
I don't know where I fall some days. I'm like, wait, am I spacing out because my brain's just foggy or am I spacing out because I'm dissociating?
Yeah, and I mean, it could be one or the other or both. Brain fog is more, I mean, you're still in your body,
Mhm.
but it's just less clarity, right? So there's that like that lack of clarity, even the lack of decision making can kind of fall into that brain fog of like I think I often hear the term like analysis paralysis, right? Of like there's
Yes.
just too many options, there's too many things, and my brain's just not sorting through them well enough. Whereas the
Yeah.
dissociation is like either I've hit a memory that my body doesn't want me to remember, or I've had one of those triggers that something is happening and my brain does not want me in that space. It's protecting me from whatever I've
Mhm.
hit. And so your brain is just like throws up that wall,
Yeah. Yeah. I
right?
like that the leave your body thing too because it's that numbing, the numb feeling. I was recently somebody on TikTok, they were like it's almost like you're not a real person. You don't
Mm,
feel real anymore. You don't feel like you're in real life.
mm-hmm.
So
You're the
yes, that
video game character.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
I've heard that a lot too. Yeah.
You're just the sim, right? Like,
Hmm.
okay, that clarifies brain fog versus dissociation because I do like there's moments where I'm like, I don't even know where my brain went. I don't
Yeah.
know if it's left me, if I'm still like, what's happening?
Yeah.
So I mean that also goes along with like it so another trait is like forgetting what you were doing mid task,
Mm.
jumping between thoughts that you can't control. That's a cognitive dysregulation.
I feel
Again,
like
goes
that
back
one,
to the
yeah.
ADD thing, right?
Yeah, and just so much with intrusive thoughts, I think. We get those a lot, depression, anxiety, borderline, like and even bipolar, right? Some of those intrusive thoughts of just I think a lot of kids that I work with would describe it as like I don't want to, but my brain keeps telling me that I should or like
Yeah.
this thought just comes into my brain and I don't know where it comes from and I don't know how to get rid of it, but it's
Mhm.
like I hear like I know it's there but I can't control it at all. Um,
Yes.
and I think that
Y-
can be very scary too, if it's something new where it's like you have these thoughts of,
Oh yeah.
self harm or things like
Yeah, yeah,
that, where
yeah.
it's like, wait a second, like,
Yep.
sometimes intrusive, like homicidal thoughts. And you're like, whoa, that was way more than I ever thought that I as a person would get to, but like it's in my brain somehow and I don't know how to get rid of it.
Yeah, and it's super, it freaks you out. So like I personally, like I've always had ideation, so
Mm.
self-harm ideations, um
Ideations.
ideations. Thank you.
Hmm.
Ideations. And then like suicidal ideations, like there were always things that I'm like, why are these in my brain? And I felt like I was the most terrible person. Like
Hmm.
I have this beautiful life, I have so many things to be grateful for, and then I think these terrible things, and my
Yeah.
brain gives me this terrible food for thought. And I'm so defective, like it makes me feel so defective, and then I have to, now I recognize, like, nope, that's just Bruce. It's just the BPD intrusively being like, so let's start a little chaos, right? Like, it's not actually because I want any of those things.
Hmm. Yeah.
That's where it gets very cognitive dysfunctionally in
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
space.
And I think that's one of those things too, where because we focus so much on emotions and that emotional dysregulation, that it almost feels like I'm causing these things, right? Like emotions we feel like we can control, whereas the cognitive, that's not really something that like is talked about very often. And so when things are happening within those thoughts and executive functioning, it's just such a different part of our brain that we don't think we can control, and we really can't until we get into some of this training, right? And you've been
Mm-hmm.
doing a lot of training and a lot
I
of work on your
have.
brain. Tell us a little bit about that, about what are some of those skills or the work that we should be doing to really start to regulate some of our cognitive thoughts.
So first, I will say first and foremost is sleep,
Mm.
honestly. And I say this in the vein of, listeners, I am not a great sleep person. I say sleep is the most important. I maybe get good sleep 4 days a week, okay? And as one, I'm a very light sleeper. I'm not, it's that amygdala thing. It's constantly being on alert. So I have some things that I am working through personally to be a better sleeper. So I'm trying. I've recently increased my magnesium because apparently it's very important for restful sleep. I
It
didn't.
does so many things. Have we
I
talked about
know.
magnesium yet?
I'm just finding out about magnesium. This is like a whole new thing.
Incredible.
It is. So I started doing that recently to really try to help. I have to dissect my sleep so hard. Like I even had to, like, my husband and I had a conversation where he's making concessions because he's okay, it must be a thing where like one partner is the very light sleeper, one partner is the extremely heavy sleeper who also flails around and snores all night, like, so you're the deep sleeper,
I'm
you're
the really
the,
deep sleeper, my poor
yeah.
husband.
Yeah. So that's the thing. And so like I had the conversation with my bed partner to be like,
Hmm.
hey, and he's like, okay, yeah, I'm gonna work on, trying to stay on my side of the bed, and like, and it's an unconscious thing, but if you tell, the good thing about our brains, right, if you tell your brain enough and you practice it enough, like your brain actually will cooperate and it will listen to you to a certain extent. So he's actually been doing really good with just trying to be like a better sleep trained person, to where he kind of is like, okay, I'm going to stay on my side because she gets like disturbed easily. I'm a ticking time bomb. Like I told him, I'm like, just think of me as like sleeping next to a ticking time bomb. If you touch me, or if you like, I will be like, what's happening? What are we awake now? Like
Is it time?
it's terrible. So, sleep is number one, because I can tell you, I feel the days when I do get good sleep, I feel the difference. I feel clearer. My brain doesn't feel nearly as foggy. My emotions feel slightly more manageable. So sleep was number one, but then also I've had probably 5+ years of cognitive behavioral therapy. So, learning why my thoughts and feelings and how I associate my thoughts and feelings, I've had to do years and years of work to really understand my own thoughts and to put um just actual like practical use to my thoughts, because for me my thoughts are very messy and they make me feel emotional and I don't like it. And so I had to get out of that every thought is not a feeling mode, um and understand that thoughts are just thoughts. And sometimes we can just acknowledge them and let them go.
Yeah.
And you don't have to turn it into a feeling every time. And I say these words like I sound like my therapist because it is true.
Manifesting. Yeah.
Manifesting, yes, absolutely. So I did a lot of cognitive behavioral therapy for a very long time, which has led me into now my DBT therapy, which is the dialectical behavioral therapy, which is helping me now put the good practices of understanding how my thoughts actually impact my feelings. And now I can start unraveling them a bit further to really figure out how to balance those and work them to my benefit every
Mm-hmm.
day and not working against me so much. So it's kind of putting the practical uses now to how I've trained my thoughts to impact my feelings.
Yeah. Yeah. That, say it one more time for the people in the back, that your thoughts,
My thoughts are not
not
feelings all the
feelings.
time. Yeah.
I just
Yeah.
like
You're, yeah.
that's so huge. And I think anytime we you get those intrusive thoughts, and it's like, I think there's two ways to think about it, right? So like, as the person having the intrusive thoughts, you're like, what did I do, or what am I feeling that I'm not in tune with right now? And it
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't always have to be that way, right? It's not always that they're connected. And I think as a parent or a caregiver or something like that, that like, I think that's something that is often missing when I see like teenagers and they're having these intrusive thoughts. And it's like, it's not always that something horrible happened that's
Yeah.
causing this thought. It could just be that it's happening. And it's now like we need to teach how to respond in a way that's safer. Yeah, I think that that can be so hard because they're like, well, what made my child depressed, and what caused this to happen? It's like, whoa,
Yeah.
like there's
Yeah.
like, let's, yeah, it doesn't always, a thought is not always a feeling.
Yes, yes. And it takes practice, and the longer
Mm-hmm.
that you live with your thoughts being feelings or
Mm,
thoughts needing to act like feelings, the longer you live with that, the more your brain will get used to it and the more your amygdala stays on guard, because your amygdala is now like, okay, so all of our thoughts are feelings and we have to act on
gotta
every single
move.
thing that we think, right? And you're
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
no, no, that's too much. That's too much.
Yeah, yeah, wow.
Yeah. Yeah. So that was a big one.
Mm-hmm.
That I just learned, like I think I learned that when I was well, it was when I was going through my divorce. Um and it was like I had so many intrusive thoughts, and my
Mm-hmm.
therapist was like, whoa, whoa, whoa. Like, let's understand that you don't have to feel all of these things that are coming into your brain.
Yeah.
They can just very well be like, "Oh, the sky's blue today. Okay, great. Moving on."
There it
Right?
is. Yeah.
Mhm.
Do
Yeah.
you ever do any journaling or things like that?
I have recently got into AI journaling and I love it. I know, I know. Go figure.
We're really into AI around
I
here.
know. Me and ChatGPT, we're just buddies. We're just best friends. Um,
He
but
hears you.
yeah, I know. I don't care. Great. So that's what I always tell people. I'm like, well, they're listening. And I'm like, well, what are you hiding then?
Yeah,
Like, that's my question. Like, what kind
what do
of
you
dirt?
not want them to hear?
The tax evasion? What's happening? Like, I need to know. Good. Because I don't really care about AI gen technology, because I do think that at the end of the day, but I work in a little bit of a tech space. So
Mm.
I also know that at the end of the day, if there's not a human back there actually like pushing buttons to make things happen, it's not going to go very
It's
far.
not gonna go. I
We just
like that.
unplug it. You guys don't freak out. We just
There we go.
unplug the droid and it's fine. Like
Okay.
you let it run out of battery. That's it.
It's good. Okay,
So
perfect.
I've been doing some AI journaling, which is so cool though, because it's very judgment free zone.
Mm.
And so it's very much like the more you kind of dump into it, and I'll just kind of like, because what I used to do before AI journaling is, and this was my therapist's recommendation, was I would journal something out, I would have to put evidence to it. So she would
Mm-hmm.
say, okay, write out your intrusive thought, put evidence to it to see if you can actually prove it. And if you can't, then you need to let it go and you need to move on.
Mm.
So I would write down things like, one of my things when my husband and I first started dating, and he's very much just a very easygoing, kind of a passive person, and I'm like on high alert all the time. And so I would have to tell myself, like, oh, I would tell myself like, oh my gosh, he's not interested in you anymore, like he's probably dating somebody else, and it's that paranoid feeling, it's the
Mm-hmm.
paranoid part of the BPD. And then I'd have to take it, and my therapist would be like, hey, well, write it down. What evidence do you have to support that thought? And I would come up with little to nothing. And or the evidence that I did have was nonsense, because it was all stuff that, like, it came back to me.
It was
It
all the
was all,
paranoia.
yeah, yeah, it was all very much me statements, and I was like, oh, okay, like that's
Okay, fine.
clearly the signs pointing here. So I do think that journaling helps. It does help. You've mentioned that even you write stuff down, right? We talked about it in our last episode. It's just the getting it out and moving on,
Yeah, I'm a
right?
big like if there's something in my brain, I'm gonna ruminate on it and I'm just gonna keep circling around it until I get it out of my brain. Like it needs to come out somehow. And so whether it's
Yeah.
telling somebody or writing it down, like it can't stay up there. It's just gonna keep being chewed on and it's miserable.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, because that thought wants to be a feeling, and it's
Mm-hmm.
stupid because thoughts are not feelings all the time.
Mm-hmm. I love that.
Yeah. So I think just as far as the cognitive abilities and dysregulations, and then also learning the new skills
Mm-hmm.
with understanding that, especially with mental health disorders, having some sort of brain dysregulation, it's like, it's okay. That is an okay thing that happens. It really is. The part that's not okay is when we start letting it impact our lives, and it starts destroying our relationships or destroy your own peace of mind or your own self-esteem. Those are the parts where we can't let these cognitive distortions really get into our well-being, right?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah. I think we'll get into that more too as we get into behavioral dysregulations and interpersonal dysregulations, like you said, because they're all interconnected, right? The emotional, cognitive, behavioral, interpersonal. And yet, because they're so interconnected, we often think of them as one, that it
Mhm.
all is part of one thing when they're really separated. And we can really dive into each part of it and how we regulate and how we, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And think about, like, so when we talk, like, the big thing is triggers, right? Triggers,
Mm-hmm.
triggers, triggers. Everything's triggering. What would it look like if, instead of the domino effect of a trigger, so like, we'll say, for example, you get triggered by something emotional, it affects your behavioral dysregulation. So now you got behavioral and emotional that's dysregulated, and then your brain starts working overtime. Now you've got cognitive dysregulation, and then you start yelling at your partner, your kids, and now you get interpersonal dysregulation. You've now triggered and dominoed effect all the way down the line, right?
Mm-hmm.
What would it look like if we could recognize at the first sign and say, you know what? that made my emotions feel really not at ease, and they feel a little off now. So I'm going to take a moment and just kind of get that back regulated before it
Mm-hmm.
jumps the gun and starts pushing all the other dominoes out of the way, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's the whole mindful practice of
Mm.
this part of this series that we're really hoping that we can just share with our other listeners, because it's it sounds simple in theory, and at the same time it's a lot to unpack. That's why we're doing it episode by episode. So it's not perfect, none of us are perfect at it. Jen, you want to tell us your chaos story about your dysregulation this week?
Guys. Okay. So I know a lot of people tend to have an emotional support water bottle. Water bottles to me are one of those things that, like, I come home and I have my water bottle at home and I have my water bottles at work, and like they are just my comfort. Like, it's my one thing that's the same every day when I get home. I can fill it up. Like, it's always the same, right? And it's always mine.
Yeah.
It's mommy's bottle, okay? People can have drinks out of it, but it is mommy's bottle. So, I just said mommy a lot. I'm really sorry.
It's either Jen the RN or mommy.
um so early last week, I had enjoyed some beverages over the weekend and I came home. I needed my hydration. So I was filling up my water bottle. I even added a little bit of extra body armor so that I could really get hydrated. But of course, I had had a few too many beverages and I knocked my water bottle off the counter. And it was
No.
this lovely old school plastic bottle. I know the microplastics, they're getting me, but it's fine. I don't care. It was so lightweight. It was absolutely wonderful, but it was double walled and
Yes.
it fell on the ground and the inside wall cracked. And so then it was like making all these funny noises. It was like leaking. The water was getting everywhere. And I was like, it needs to go
No.
bye-bye. But now I have no water bottles and I've been stressing for like a week. There's all these popular water bottles out there.
Yes.
And I'm like, do I spend the money to get like a popular water bottle when all I want is like a cheap plastic water bottle? I have cheap plastic water bottles though, and they don't work as well. They're just like the squirt in your mouth ones, and you can never get the water out well. I like the straws, but I don't like anything that's too heavy. My whole week has been really stressed about water bottles because I broke my favorite and now I have to replace it somehow.
I
And
know.
like, oh, it's just so sad.
I know. But here's the good news is thoughts are not feelings. So, as sad as you want to be about your water bottle, the good
Too.
news is that it is just a thought about a support water bottle, right? It's
It's
not
replaceable.
actually, yeah, it's not actually a support person,
It's true.
or like something that has a life in it.
Mm.
So, cognitively, it's a loss. I'll give you that. It is a loss. I had a double walled that I had for years. And then
This one
one
too.
time I put it in the dishwasher, and I'd been putting
Oh,
it in the dishwasher. Like,
right.
that was not a problem. Apparently it was one time too many, and then the whole thing got warped, and I was
No.
so sad because the double walls are the best. They
They
really
are
are.
the
They
best.
You don't get all the perspiration on them, and oh, I know. I do know.
And it was like a plastic bottle with the straw, so it was like lightweight, like could go
Yep.
everywhere with me.
Yep. I could see how much I was actually drinking, so I
Yes.
knew that I was actually making progress in it.
Yes.
I
Yes,
know.
it was easy enough to wash, so you could put some like juice or lemonade in it and then you could rinse it out and
Yes.
get water in it and it didn't taste leftover like
Yeah.
juice, right?
Yeah.
Got aired
Yeah.
out. Oh man.
I know. I know. I am sorry for your loss. Just know
Thank you.
I'm here with you.
Thank you. I feel that. I appreciate the sentiment. I will find another bottle. I will
It
report
is,
back eventually.
yeah, it is one of those things though that like we do. I don't know. We know when I don't know when this started though. Like, when did this water bottle thing start? When all of a sudden science figured out that we needed better hydration,
Our
and
parents
now
never,
we're
yeah. The only person I
no.
remember ever having a water bottle when I was growing up was my aunt. And like she I thought it was so novel because she like kept her water bottle in the refrigerator. I was like,
Mm.
who is this woman that keeps water in the refrigerator? Like, what a fascinating thing. And now, of course, we all are keeping water in our refrigerator, but
Yeah. I'm a 2 water bottle person, so I got 2. I have a regular water and I have a hypermobility and a little bit of like a POTS syndrome kind of going on. So I'm chronically dehydrated. So I've got an electrolyte water bottle and then I have regular water. And I
very
have
smart.
2 like all the time.
All the
And I look
time.
like a crazy person. And I'd like to say that I care, but I have way bigger fish to fry with the craziness than 2 water bottles. So whatever. At least I'm hydrated.
But tell me
Yeah.
about your chaos or calm for this week.
My chaos has just literally been work has been extremely overwhelming. And so I'm trying to keep it's a good thing we talked about cognitive dysregulation this week though. And I was reading about it and I was doing my research on it because
Yeah.
I have had the week that just tested all the things that
Mm.
would possibly make my brain want to check out. And I did a good job hanging in there. I met all my deadlines. I did all
Look
my
at you.
tasks. Yeah, the amount of unread emails is still, it's there, but they're not going anywhere. It's
Yeah.
fine. They'll be there.
Everyone will be there next week.
Yeah. So, I mean, I will definitely say that like that was the part of my chaos that I actually kept reined in this week. And I'm
That's awesome.
yeah, it was a thing that I didn't know if I would be able to make it through, but I did and I do feel very proud about it because
Good.
I've had other weeks where I'm just like, nope, we're giving the towel now. Like I'm
Yep.
throwing it in. It's done. Like and
Done.
it'd be like Tuesday morning, right? I'd be like, yeah, done.
Sorry.
Brain's
Too many
done.
too many feelings this week. We're out.
Yeah. All the thoughts have become feelings and we're done. Like
We're
I
out.
can't. Yeah. So
Yeah.
I kept it together this week,
That's
which is a
awesome.
big milestone for me. Yeah.
Yeah. And you hit the deadlines like
I did.
really, really executed, right? To a high
I did.
level. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
huge.
It's been so when I got diagnosed back in April at Easter,
Okay.
right? Like that was when I was formally diagnosed. And granted, I
Okay.
was struggling probably a good year before that. So we're talking over a year now that I have really struggled with my cognitive functioning
Mm.
and just maintaining those real basic executive functions all the
Mm-hmm.
time. This week has it was chaos like any other, but I
Mm-hmm.
actually was like, no, chaos, we're gonna control you this week. And I did it. And
Look at that.
there's hope, people.
Yeah.
There is hope. It's gonna take a bit, it's gonna take a while. You're not gonna be perfect at it,
Yeah.
but it's there. So we'll see what next week looks like, but this week was okay.
You never know what's next.
Listen, you can't you take it with a grain of salt because there's lots of days to deal with, and we're gonna take them one day at a time, one step at a time, and it's gonna be okay.
I can't wait to get into more dysregulations with you over the next 2 episodes.
I love being dysregulated with you. It's great. It's one of my favorites.
It's how we live here in the middle of the mess.
In the middle of the mess.
Thanks for
So
listening.
thanks for listening this week, you guys. We can't wait to meet you back here next week in the middle of the mess. Yeah. You froze for a second.
I know,
Okay.
you did too.
Okay, good.
I just
We're
smiled.
I just got real quiet. I'll have to edit that. I was like, what do I do?
I can't see her anymore, but if she's still talking, I at least should be smiling.
Well, there's our
gosh.
blooper for
Well,
this
there
episode.
we go. Okay, sorry.